Well, hey there friends, it's Philip. One of the real blessings of this homesteading life is the abundance it brings. This year, our bees have been working overtime and we've been blessed with more golden, delicious honey than we know what to do with. It's a beautiful thing, seeing those jars line the pantry shelves, each one a little testament to the hard work of our tiny pollinators and the goodness of the land. It feels like liquid sunshine, and I just love it. We've shared jars with all our neighbors, we've drizzled it on everything from our morning toast to our evening tea, and still, the collection grows. It's a good problem to have, a really good one. But it got me thinking. I know so many of you out there, with your own hives or a love for local honey, might be looking at your own pantry full of jars and wondering the same thing I was. What can we do with all this natural sweetness? If that sounds like you, then you've come to the right place today. We're going to take that beautiful honey and turn it into some truly wonderful things. These aren't just recipes for today, these are recipes for tomorrow, for next month, even for years from now. We're talking about creating delicious foods that are made to last, preserving that beautiful harvest in ways that are both practical and incredibly tasty. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get cooking. Alright, first up is something that I believe should be a staple in every kitchen, a good, homemade honey mustard sauce. It's one of those things that once you make it yourself, you'll wonder why you ever bought it from the store. The flavor is just so much richer, so much more authentic, and you know exactly what's going into it. No strange preservatives or ingredients you can't pronounce, just simple, wholesome goodness. The beauty of this recipe is its simplicity. We're talking about just a handful of ingredients that you likely already have on hand. Of course, the star of the show is our honey. We'll be combining that liquid gold with some good quality Dijon mustard, a little bit of apple cider vinegar for a nice tang, and a few spices to round it all out. It's a dance of sweet and savory that comes together in just a matter of minutes. I love to whip up a big batch of this all at once. It's so easy to do, and the payoff is huge. Think about having this ready to go for dipping chicken tenders, drizzling over a fresh garden salad, or spreading on a sandwich. It elevates the simplest of meals into something special. There's a real satisfaction in creating these foundational elements for your pantry, the things that make everyday cooking just a little bit easier and a lot more delicious. We'll start by whisking our mustards together. I like to use a combination of smooth Dijon for that classic flavor, and a whole grain mustard for a bit of texture and a deeper, more rustic taste. It's these little details, these small choices that really build the character of the final sauce. It's not just about following a recipe, it's about making it your own, adding your own personal touch to it. Then comes the honey. As you pour it in, you'll see the mixture transform. It goes from being just sharp and tangy to something wonderfully balanced and complex. The honey doesn't just add sweetness, it mellows the bite of the mustard and vinegar, bringing all the flavors together in perfect harmony. We'll give it a good, steady whisk until it's smooth and emulsified, a beautiful, creamy consistency. Once it's all mixed, we'll pour it into some clean glass jars. The great thing about this sauce is that, thanks to the preservative qualities of the honey and vinegar, it will last in your refrigerator for months. It's a wonderful way to use up that extra honey and stock your pantry with something that is both incredibly useful and genuinely delicious. It's a small project with a big reward, and that's the kind of cooking I love most. Next, we're going to tackle something that feels truly timeless and deeply rooted in the spirit of homesteading honey beef jerky. There is something so satisfying about taking a fresh cut of meat and transforming it into a shelf-stable snack that can nourish you for months to come. It's a tradition of preservation that goes back generations, a way of making the most of a harvest and ensuring nothing goes to waste. The process starts with selecting the right cut of beef. You want something lean like a top round or flank steak. Slicing it thin is key, as this allows the marinade to penetrate deeply and helps the jerky to dry evenly. I find it's easiest to slice if you pop the beef in the freezer for about an hour beforehand. It firms it up just enough to get those nice, consistent slices. It's a little bit of prep work that makes all the difference. Now, for the heart of the recipe, the honey marinade. This is where the magic really happens. We're going to create a bath of flavor for our beef to soak in. We'll combine our beautiful raw honey with some soy sauce for that salty umami depth, a bit of Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and a touch of smoked paprika. The honey does more than just add a subtle sweetness, it also helps to tenderize the meat and acts as a natural preservative. This reminds me of the old Amish traditions. where honey was revered not just for its sweetness, but for its incredible ability to preserve food. They understood its natural antibacterial properties long before science explained it. By using honey in our marinade, we're tapping into that old-world wisdom, creating a food that is not only delicious but is also built to last. It's a connection to the past that I find so meaningful in the kitchen. Once our marinade is whisked together, we'll submerge the beef slices, making sure every single piece is coated well. Then, it's a matter of patience. We'll let it marinate in the refrigerator for at least 8 hours, but a full 24 is even better. This time allows the flavors to meld and truly permeate the meat, ensuring every bite of the finished jerky is packed with that sweet and savory goodness. After marinating, we'll lay the strips out on the racks of our dehydrator or on baking sheets for the oven. The drying process is low and slow, a gentle removal of moisture that concentrates the flavor and preserves the meat. The house will fill with the most incredible aroma. After a few hours, you're left with the most wonderful, chewy, and flavorful beef jerky, a perfect protein-packed snack made with love, right in your own home. There's a certain magic to capturing the taste of a season. Think of the perfect sun-ripened peach in the middle of summer, or the crisp tartness of an autumn apple. With this next method, we can hold on to that magic all year long. We're going to be preserving seasonal fruits in honey, a technique that is as ancient as it is simple. It's a beautiful way to keep the essence of your garden's bounty on your pantry shelf. What I love most about this is its simplicity. You don't need any special canning equipment or complicated processes. All you need is good quality, ripe fruit and your wonderful honey. The honey acts as the preserving agent, its low water content and natural acidity creating an environment where bacteria simply can't thrive. It's nature's own perfect preservative, and it imparts its own beautiful floral sweetness to the fruit. Let's talk about the fruit. You can use almost anything you can think of: sliced peaches, apricots, plums, whole berries like blueberries or cherries, even citrus slices. The key is to start with fruit that is at its peak of ripeness but still firm. You want it to hold its shape and texture as it sits in the honey. Wash and dry your fruit thoroughly, as any excess water can dilute the honey and compromise the preservation. The process itself is wonderfully straightforward. You simply slice your larger fruits, or leave smaller ones whole, and then pack them into a clean, sterilized glass jar. You don't want to pack them too tightly. Leave a little room for the honey to flow, and surround each piece completely. It's about creating a little world for the fruit to live in, suspended in that liquid gold. Once your jars are packed with fruit, you'll slowly pour the honey over the top. Take your time with this part. You want to see the honey seep down into all the nooks and crannies, displacing any air pockets. I like to use a chopstick or a thin skewer to gently move the fruit around and release any trapped air bubbles. Fill the jar right up to the top, ensuring every bit of fruit is completely submerged. Then you simply seal the jar and set it in a cool, dark place. Over the next few weeks, something amazing happens. The fruit will release some of its own juices into the honey, creating a delicious fruit-infused syrup, while the fruit itself becomes candied and tender. After a month or so, you can open a jar and spoon those honey-sweetened fruits over yogurt, ice cream, or just eat them straight from the jar for a taste of summer in the dead of winter. If you're looking for a healthy, crunchy snack that satisfies a sweet tooth, then you are going to fall in love with these honey-dried apple chips. They are incredibly simple to make and are a fantastic way to use up an abundance of apples from the orchard. There's no frying, no added oils, just the pure, simple goodness of apples with a delicate kiss of honey. They are perfect for packing in lunches, or for having on hand for a guilt-free treat. The secret to getting that perfect crispy chip is slicing the apples as thinly as possible. A mandolin slicer is your best friend for this task. It gives you those uniform, paper-thin slices that will dry out evenly and become wonderfully crunchy. If you don't have a mandolin, a sharp knife and a steady hand will work just fine. I like to leave the skins on for that extra bit of color and nutrition. Once your apples are sliced, we'll prepare a little honey bath for them. We don't need much. We'll take a bit of our honey and thin it out with a small amount of water. This makes it easier to coat the apple slices without making them too sticky or overly sweet. We're just looking for a light glaze, a hint of honey that will caramelize slightly as the apples dry, enhancing their natural sweetness. I like to add a little sprinkle of cinnamon to the honey water mixture as well. Apple and cinnamon are a classic pairing for a reason, and it adds a lovely warmth to the finished chips. You could also experiment with other spices like nutmeg or a tiny pinch of cardamom. This is your chance to play with flavors and create a snack that is uniquely yours. It's these little touches that make homemade so special. After giving the apple slices a quick dip in the honey mixture, we'll lay them out in a single layer on our dehydrator trays or on parchment-lined baking sheets. It's important not to let them overlap, as this will prevent them from crisping up properly. Give them their own space to breathe and transform. This is another one of those low and slow processes that rewards your patience. You'll dry them in a dehydrator or a low-temperature oven for several hours, flipping them halfway through. They're done when they are light, brittle, and snap when you bend them. Let them cool completely, and they will get even crispier. Stored in an airtight container, these delicious honey apple chips will last for months, though I have to admit they rarely last that long in our house. In our home, we believe that food is medicine, and this next recipe is a perfect example of that philosophy. We're making a ginger honey immunity boosting snack, or as I like to call them, little nuggets of wellness. This is something wonderful to have on hand, especially during those colder months when you feel like your body needs a little extra support. It combines the powerful properties of two incredible ingredients, ginger and honey. Ginger is well known for its anti-inflammatory and immune-boosting benefits, and when you pair that with the natural antibacterial and soothing properties of raw honey, you have a real powerhouse. This isn't just a snack, it's a proactive way to care for yourself and your family. And the best part is, it's made from simple, natural ingredients with no artificial anything. To start, we'll need fresh ginger root. We're going to peel it and then chop it very finely, or even better, grate it using a microplane. The finer the ginger, the better it will incorporate into the honey, and the more potent the final chew will be. You'll be greeted by that amazing, spicy, and invigorating aroma of fresh ginger, which is a tonic in itself. Once the ginger is prepped, we'll gently warm our honey in a small saucepan over very low heat. It's so important not to overheat the honey, as high temperatures can destroy its beneficial enzymes. We just want to warm it enough to make it more fluid so it can easily mix with the ginger. This is a gentle process, one that requires a bit of attention and care. We'll stir the grated ginger into the warm honey, and you'll see it transform into this beautiful, fragrant, and speckled mixture. We'll continue to stir it over low heat for a few minutes, just to allow the flavors to meld and the ginger to soften slightly. The goal here is to infuse the honey with all the goodness of the ginger. To finish, we'll pour this mixture onto a parchment-lined tray and spread it into a thin layer. You can then let it cool and harden, and later break it into small, bite-sized pieces. Or, for a neater look, you can pour it into small silicone molds. Once completely cooled and firm, these little chews can be stored in an airtight jar for months, ready for whenever you need a little boost of wellness. There's something so comforting and satisfying about a bowl of warm roasted nuts. It's a simple pleasure. Today, we're going to elevate that simple pleasure by glazing them with honey, creating a sweet, crunchy, and utterly addictive treat that's perfect for snacking, for setting out when guests come over, or for adding a special touch to salads and cheese boards. This is one of those recipes that is wonderfully versatile. You can use almost any kind of raw, unsalted nut you like. Almonds, pecans, walnuts, cashews, they all work beautifully. I love to use a mix of nuts for a variety of flavors and textures. It makes every handful a little different, a little surprise. The key is to start with raw nuts, as we'll be roasting them ourselves to bring out their deepest flavors. The process begins by warming the nuts in a dry skillet over medium heat. We're not trying to cook them through just yet, just toast them lightly. You'll know they're ready when they become fragrant. This step is crucial because it awakens the natural oils in the nuts and makes them so much more flavorful than if you started with them completely raw. It's a small step that makes a big impact. While the nuts are toasting, we'll prepare our simple glaze. In a small bowl, we'll mix our honey with a tiny pinch of salt and maybe a dash of cinnamon or cayenne pepper if you like a little sweet heat. The salt is really important here. It doesn't make the nuts salty, but it enhances the sweetness of the honey and the flavor of the nuts, creating a more complex and balanced taste. Once the nuts are fragrant, we'll pour the honey mixture right into the hot skillet. You need to work quickly here, stirring constantly to coat every single nut evenly. The honey will bubble and sizzle as it hits the hot pan. We'll keep stirring for just a minute or two, until the glaze has thickened and is clinging beautifully to each nut. Then, we'll immediately turn the glazed nuts out onto a sheet of parchment paper, spreading them into a single layer to cool. It's important to separate them as they cool, otherwise, you'll end up with one giant nut cluster. Once they're completely cool, they'll be crisp, crunchy, and perfectly glazed. Store them in an airtight container, and you'll have a delicious, long-lasting treat ready for any occasion. Have you ever wanted to try your hand at candy making? It can seem intimidating, but I want to show you a recipe that is surprisingly simple, and honestly, it harks back to a much older time. We're going to make hard honey candies, using little more than honey and water. These are the kind of simple, wholesome sweets that you might have found in a general store 100 years ago. They are pure, delicious, and a wonderful way to preserve the flavor of your honey. The science behind this is fascinating. We're essentially just cooking the honey to a specific temperature, known as the hard crack stage in candy making. At this temperature, almost all the water has been cooked out, and the sugar structure becomes very brittle. When it cools, it creates a hard, glass-like candy that dissolves slowly in your mouth, releasing that pure honey flavor. A candy thermometer is really helpful here to ensure you get it just right. We'll start by combining our honey with a little bit of water in a heavy-bottomed saucepan. The water helps the honey to heat more evenly and prevents it from scorching before it reaches the right temperature. We'll give it a gentle stir to combine, and then we'll bring it to a boil over medium-high heat, attaching our candy thermometer to the side of the pot. From this point on, it's all about patience and observation. We need to let the mixture boil without stirring until it reaches 300 to 310 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll watch as the bubbles get thicker and slower, and the color of the mixture deepens into a rich amber. It's a beautiful transformation to witness, but you do need to keep a close eye on it, as it can go from perfect to burnt very quickly at the end. Once it hits that magic temperature, we'll immediately remove it from the heat. Now, you have a couple of options. You can carefully pour the hot syrup into special hard candy molds, or you can pour it onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. If you pour it onto a sheet, you can let it cool slightly and then score it with a knife, so it's easy to break into pieces once it's fully hardened. After pouring, all that's left to do is wait for it to cool completely. It will become hard, translucent, and beautiful. You can then break it apart or pop the candies out of their molds. To store them and prevent them from getting sticky, I like to toss them in a little bit of powdered sugar. Kept in a sealed jar, these simple, old-fashioned honey candies will last for a very, very long time. Life on the homestead is busy, and I know your lives are busy too. That's why it's so important to have healthy grab-and-go snacks on hand. These homemade honey-based granola bars are the perfect solution. They are packed with protein, fiber, and wholesome ingredients to keep you going on those long days. And because honey is our binder, they are naturally sweetened and have a wonderful chewy texture. What I love about making my own granola bars is the complete control I have over the ingredients. No more store-bought bars with hidden sugars and processed fillers. We get to choose everything that goes into them. We'll start with a base of rolled oats, and from there the possibilities are endless. You can add your favorite nuts, seeds, dried fruits, and even a little protein powder for an extra boost. For our bars today, I'm using a mix of almonds, pumpkin seeds, and dried cranberries. It's a combination I love for its texture and its balance of sweet and tart flavors. We'll start by lightly toasting the oats and nuts in the oven for a few minutes. Just like with the glazed nuts, this step deepens their flavor and gives the finished bars a wonderful, roasted taste that makes all the difference. The binder that holds all this goodness together is a simple mixture of honey and a little bit of nut butter. We'll gently warm the honey and nut butter in a saucepan until it's smooth and pourable. The honey not only provides that natural sweetness, but its stickiness is what will bind our bars and help them hold their shape. It's the glue that creates the magic. Once the honey mixture is ready, we'll pour it over our toasted oat and nut mixture in a large bowl. We'll give it a really good stir, making sure every last oat and almond is coated in that sweet, sticky goodness. This is the moment it starts to feel like granola bars, the familiar scent filling the kitchen. It's a comforting and promising smell. Finally, we'll press the mixture firmly into a parchment-lined baking pan. This is a key step. You have to press it down really well to ensure the bars don't crumble apart after they've set. I like to use the bottom of a measuring cup to get it really compacted and even. Then we'll pop it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours to firm up before slicing into bars. These can be wrapped individually and stored for weeks, a perfect homemade answer to a busy day. If you have kids or if you're just a kid at heart, you're going to adore this next recipe. We're making homemade fruit rolls or fruit leather sweetened with just a touch of honey. This is such a fun and healthy way to transform fruit puree into a chewy, delicious snack. It's a taste of childhood, but made with real, wholesome ingredients that you can feel good about. The foundation of this recipe is, of course, fruit. You can use almost any fruit you like, and it's a fantastic way to use up fruit that might be a little past its prime for eating fresh. Berries, peaches, mangoes, applesauce, they all work wonderfully. We're going to puree the fruit until it's completely smooth. A blender or a food processor makes quick work of this. Once we have our smooth fruit puree, we'll stir in a little bit of honey. The amount of honey you use will depend on the natural sweetness of your fruit. For tart fruits like raspberries, you might want a little more. For sweet fruits like mangoes, just a touch will do. The honey not only adds sweetness but also helps to give the finished fruit roll a nice, pliable, and less brittle texture. This is another recipe where you can get creative. A little squeeze of lemon juice can brighten the flavor of the fruit and also helps with preservation. You could also add a pinch of cinnamon to an apple or pear puree for a warm, spiced version. It's all about taking a basic idea and making it your own, infusing it with the flavors that your family loves. Next, we'll spread the honey-sweetened puree in a thin, even layer onto a silicone baking mat or a parchment-lined baking sheet. The key word here is even. If you have thick and thin spots, it won't dry properly. You want it to be about 1/8 of an inch thick all the way across. It takes a little practice, but an offset spatula is a great tool for this job. Then it's another low and slow drying process in the oven at its lowest temperature. This can take several hours, and it's done when the center is no longer sticky to the touch. Once it's fully dried and cooled, you can peel it off the mat, cut it into strips with scissors or a pizza cutter, and roll it up in parchment paper. These fun, fruity rolls will keep for months. A perfect lunchbox surprise. For our final recipe, we're going to make something truly special, something a little decadent. We're making rich, velvety honey chocolate truffles. These are a sophisticated treat, but they are surprisingly easy to make. Using honey as our sweetener instead of refined sugar gives them a unique, floral depth of flavor that pairs beautifully with the dark chocolate. They are the perfect way to end a special meal or to give as a heartfelt homemade gift. The heart of any good truffle is good quality chocolate. I recommend using a dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao content. The slight bitterness of the dark chocolate is the perfect counterpoint to the sweetness of the honey. We're going to chop the chocolate finely and place it in a heat-proof bowl. Chopping it ensures that it will melt smoothly and evenly. The magic happens when we create the ganache. In a small saucepan, we'll gently heat some heavy cream in our honey, just until it begins to simmer around the edges. We don't want it to boil, just get hot enough to melt the chocolate. The honey dissolves into the cream, creating a sweetened, fragrant base for our truffles. Once the cream mixture is hot, we'll pour it directly over our chopped chocolate. And then, we wait. We'll let it sit for about 5 minutes without stirring. This allows the heat from the cream to gently and evenly melt the chocolate from the inside out. It's a moment of patience that prevents the chocolate from seizing and ensures a silky smooth ganache. After 5 minutes, we'll begin to stir, starting from the center and working our way out in slow, concentric circles. You'll watch as the cream and chocolate come together, transforming into a glossy, dark, and luscious ganache. It's a truly beautiful sight. At this point, you could stir in a little vanilla extract or a splash of liqueur for extra flavor. We'll let the ganache cool and firm up in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. Once it's firm enough to scoop, we'll use a small spoon or a melon baller to form little balls, rolling them between our hands to make them smooth. Finally, we'll roll them in cocoa powder, chopped nuts, or even more melted chocolate. Stored in a sealed container in a cool place, these exquisite truffles will stay fresh and delicious, a testament to the simple elegance of honey and chocolate. Well, look at all the wonderful things we created today. From savory sauces and jerky to sweet candies and decadent truffles, all starting from a simple jar of honey. It just goes to show you the incredible versatility of this gift from nature. And believe me, this is just the beginning. There are hundreds of other ways to use honey to create delicious foods that don't expire, preserving the harvest and stocking your pantry with goodness. It's all about looking at an ingredient and seeing not just what it is, but what it can become. The most important ingredient, though, in any recipe, is love. When you take the time to create something with your own 2 hands, Whether it's for your family or for yourself, you're pouring a little bit of your heart into it. That's what makes homemade food so special. It's not just about nourishment for the body, it's about nourishment for the soul. So, as you cook, remember to add a generous helping of love to every single dish. So the next time you find yourself with a few extra jars of that beautiful golden honey, I hope you'll feel inspired. I hope you'll remember some of the things we made today and know exactly what to do. There's so much joy to be found in the process of creating and preserving. Thank you for spending this time with me in my kitchen. Until next time, happy homesteading, and the very best of luck to you in all your adventures.